Shabbat Shalom. Chag Sameach. Today, on the 8th day of Passover, Shabbat, Yizkor, the Torah reading selection is from the end of Parshat Re'eh, chapters 14 through 16 in the book of Deuteronomy, Sefer Devarim. Once again, we learn about the calendar of holidays. And after 8 days of Passover, I'm ready to admit that I'm ready to try any other holiday. Even Yom Kippur sounds lovely this morning. And it's in this explanation of the holiday that we read the following two words in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 14. V'samachta b'chagecha, and you will rejoice in your holiday. And it's from these words, you will rejoice in your holiday, that the rabbis rule that we are allowed to cook on holidays, whereas we cannot cook on Shabbat. I'm trying to avoid a long rabbinic definition of cooking, so let's just all agree that the idea is that on Shabbat you may warm an item that has already been created or transformed through fire, while on a holiday that's not on Shabbat, we may cook or transform ingredients through the usage of fire. Why am I discussing cooking this morning? First, it should not be lost on any of us as Jews that the Torah tells us to rejoice on holidays, and we as a Jewish people immediately interpret joy in terms of food. Of course, food is really important to us. Today, especially today, after eating matzah for 8 days, and food has been important to us throughout the entirety of the Jewish tradition. And second, this week, my family commemorated the yahrzeit of my grandma, Gammi Marie Lebovitz. And for Gammi, food was very, very, very important. Gammi cooked for holidays as if the joy of the holiday depended on her cooking. She cooked for an ordinary dinner as if our lives depended on it. I remember as a child eating dinner at her house, and after eating her salad and finishing her delicious chicken soup, with matzo balls, of course, and then facing off with a main course of some kind of brisket and potatoes, and then more vegetables on the side and rice, and so on and so forth, I left a few vegetables on my plate, and she asked me, "Are you not feeling well? Why aren't you eating?" Oftentimes, it was only through the interference, the lobbying, and protection of my parents that I was allowed to stop eating at Gammi's table. To stop eating was to violate the simplest of life's formulas for Gammi. And that formula was always food equals love. It's not hard to understand that for a generation of Shoah prevailers, for a generation of Jews who were starved in ghettos and concentration camps, who often gave of their small daily parcel of food so that the young or the sick could eat more, it's not hard to understand that that generation would fill their fridges and their plates to the brim with food. It's one reason why our upcoming Adat Shalom community dinner and concert, welcoming Cafe Europa into our community, a community of Shoah survivors still living here in LA, which is happening on May 8th, Wednesday, May 8th, is so personally important to me. Welcoming living prevailers to a concert in this sanctuary by Violins of Hope, and then sharing dinner with them is simply an obligation we all carry as Jews. Please mark your calendars and join us for the program on Wednesday, May 8th. I'll never forget a time before Blair and I were married. We were on vacation with Blair's family in Miami, and I brought Blair over to Gammi's condo in Miami for dinner. It must have been 90 degrees outside, and Gammi began dinner with hot chicken soup. And then out came brisket and potatoes, and it became clear to me that Gammi had been preparing for this dinner for days. And then, like a master, Blair looked up from her plate and commented on how delicious everything was and asked if she could have seconds. And Gammi fell in love with Blair on the spot. Gammi's cooking for my grandfather, Simon Ba Lebovitz, and my Aunt Lorraine and my father here today. Her cooking carried with it tremendous meaning in terms of how she felt like a provider. Like she had a way of expressing love for our entire family. And I miss her. I miss her every day. She meant a great deal to me, which is why Blair and I named Maddie after her, and why my niece Maya is named after her. And I miss her even more during the holiday of Passover. On Passover, she'd make all kinds of delicious foods. Her matzah brai was simply the best. Now, everybody in this room thinks they've tasted delicious matzah brai, but that's only because you haven't tasted Gammi's matzah brai. Her matzah balls were my favorite matzah balls. They wouldn't fall apart in my soup. They sank like boulders in my bowl. They were so thick and substantial and tasty, and that was exactly like Gammi. Lastly, she made these Passover rolls that she called bulkelech. You can Google Passover bulkies. I did it. You have to spell it Bulkies, and see them for yourselves. I've actually had a picture of bulkies inserted into our Shabbat pamphlets this morning so you can see what they look like. They were terrific for salami sandwiches over Pesach. And those salami sandwiches in Ba and Gammi's kitchen, those lunches, that is what Passover lunch tastes like in my mind. For the most part, those foods are all gone. And in some ways, I'm sure we're actually healthier for it. And in some ways, it makes me really sad. They were tastes of such a distinct palette of tastes. And they live for me as such a joy in my heart. V'samachta b'chagecha. Gammi brought joy and love and occasional indigestion to so many holidays, to so many joyous family gatherings. Her cooking, along with my grandma Faye, has so influenced what I expect Passover and Purim and Rosh Hashanah to taste like and to feel like. And it's weeks like this one that I miss my grandparents a great deal. May the memory of Gammi Marie Lebovitz, Miriam Bat Yosef, and Tzipora continue to be a blessing for our family, for this community, and for all of Klal Yisrael. And may we all learn from her to enact the mitzvah, V'samachta b'chagecha. May we bring joy to our holidays so that our family and friends enjoy eating with us and celebrating with us, so that we find joy in the Jewish tradition, and so that we most importantly find joy in one another. And let us all say, Amen.